Hello everyone, welcome to Vet Image Lab. As part of our GI imaging series, today we will talk about intestinal intussusception in dogs and cats, with a focus on ultrasound. Intussusception is one of the classic gastrointestinal emergencies. In this lecture, we will go through a step-by-step ultrasound approach to diagnosing this condition. We will cover the classic ultrasound patterns, how to assess severity, and how to search for an underlying cause. Let's get started. Intussusception is a condition in which one segment of the intestine invaginates into the lumen of an adjacent intestinal segment. The intussusceptum is the inner bowel segment that invaginates into another segment of intestine. The intussuscipiens is the outer receiving bowel segment that surrounds the intussusceptum. This creates a characteristic bowel-within-bowel configuration. As the bowel segment moves inward, mesenteric fat and mesenteric vessels can also be dragged into the intestinal lumen. Clinically, intussusception is important because it can cause intestinal obstruction, bowel wall edema, venous congestion, ischemia, and eventually necrosis. Intestinal intussusception is commonly reported in young animals, especially when they have acute enteritis or gastroenteritis. These patients may present with vomiting, diarrhea, anorexia, abdominal pain, or dehydration. However, some intussusceptions can be intermittent or chronic, especially when the obstruction is partial or when the lesion reduces and recurs. When intussusception is suspected, ultrasound is the key diagnostic test because it allows direct visualization of the bowel-within-bowel configuration. We should evaluate intussusception systematically in the following order. First, confirm the lesion in the transverse plane and the longitudinal plane. Then, assess the severity by checking wall layering, bowel diameter, obstruction, mesenteric reaction, and free peritoneal fluid. Finally, look for an underlying cause, especially in older dogs and cats. Now, let's go through each step one by one. To understand the typical ultrasound patterns of the intussusception, let's briefly review the normal sonographic layers of the small intestinal wall. From the lumen outward, the first hyperechoic line is the mucosal surface. Just outside that, the hypoechoic layer is the mucosa. The next hyperechoic layer is the submucosa. Then, the hypoechoic layer represents the muscularis propria. And finally, the outer hyperechoic line is the serosa. So in a normal small intestine, we usually recognize 5 alternating echogenic layers: hyperechoic mucosal surface, hypoechoic mucosa, hyperechoic submucosa, hypoechoic muscularis, and hyperechoic serosa. In intussusception, the outer bowel segment has its own 5 sonographic layers, and the inner bowel segment also has its own 5 sonographic layers. Because these layers are folded and overlap with each other, we can see multiple alternating hyperechoic and hypoechoic lines in intussusception. In the transverse plane, this typical appearance of the bowel-within-bowel configuration is called the target sign or bullseye sign. Here is an example of intestinal intussusception in the transverse plane. This is a 3-month-old dog. On ultrasound, we can see a focally dilated intestinal loop. Inside this dilated loop, another segment of small intestine is visible. So, this is a clear bowel-within-bowel configuration. Now, let's break down this target sign into its main components. As highlighted here, the outer bowel wall surrounds the invaginated intestine and forms the outer portion of the target sign. This is the intussuscipiens. Now, inside the outer loop, we can identify the invaginated bowel segment. It creates the inner concentric layers of the target sign. This is the intussusceptum. In the center of the target sign, we can see a hyperechoic area. This is mesenteric fat. If we look carefully within this echogenic fat, we can also see small anechoic round or tubular structures. These are mesenteric vessels. This central echogenic fat and vessels are dragged into the lesion along with the intussusceptum, and they help explain the complex appearance of the target sign. To help you understand the target sign, I am comparing the gross cross-section after surgery with the transverse ultrasound image. On the left, the cut surface of the intussuscepted bowel shows one bowel segment folded inside another. On the right, the ultrasound image shows the same arrangement as concentric layers. The outer layer on ultrasound corresponds to the outer receiving bowel segment, and the inner layered structure corresponds to the invaginated bowel segment. After identifying a target-like lesion in the transverse plane, we should rotate the probe and evaluate the lesion in the longitudinal plane. In the longitudinal plane, intussusception appears as a layered tubular structure with parallel hyperechoic and hypoechoic lines. This appearance is often described as a sandwich pattern. The longitudinal view is very important because it helps confirm that the transverse target sign is truly caused by a bowel-within-bowel configuration. In this image, the outer component of the lesion is highlighted. This is the intussuscipiens, the receiving bowel segment. Inside the outer segment, the invaginated bowel segment appears as a central elongated structure with parallel hyperechoic and hypoechoic lines. This structure represents the intussusceptum. In this way, intussusception can be diagnosed by identifying the target sign in the transverse plane and the sandwich-like pattern in the longitudinal plane. But in severe cases, the layers may not be clearly visible. Marked wall edema, congestion, or ischemic change can make the bowel wall layers indistinct. In these cases, bowel diameter can also help with the diagnosis. In intussusception, one intestinal segment is located inside another intestinal segment, so the overall diameter of the intussuscepted segment is usually much larger than that of the adjacent normal bowel. As you can see in this ultrasound image, the intussuscepted segment is more than twice as dilated as the normal bowel loop located just below it. This size difference can also serve as an important clue. As intussusception persists over time, the intestinal lumen can become progressively narrowed or completely obstructed. When this happens, intestinal contents, fluid, and gas cannot pass normally through the intussuscepted segment. As a result, the bowel loops proximal to the intussusception become dilated. On ultrasound, these proximal loops may appear fluid-filled, gas-filled, or mixed. So, after identifying the intussusception itself, we should always follow the bowel oral to the lesion and check for proximal intestinal dilation. This is a 5-month-old male Maltese with parvoviral enteritis. During treatment, the patient suddenly became depressed and an abdominal mass was palpated. On ultrasound, as shown here, small intestinal intussusception was identified. Because of the intussusception, the intestinal lumen was obstructed. As a result, the bowel loops proximal to the lesion became markedly dilated. In this case, the stomach was also distended and filled with anechoic fluid. This kind of marked proximal dilation suggests significant mechanical obstruction. If the obstruction is complete, this increases the clinical urgency of the case. In addition, the fat around the intussuscepted segment is markedly swollen and hyperechoic, and we can also see free peritoneal fluid. As one bowel segment telescopes into another, the involved bowel and mesentery can become compressed and congested. This can cause local edema and inflammation in the surrounding mesenteric fat. On ultrasound, this appears as prominent hyperechoic mesenteric fat around the intussusception. This finding suggests that the lesion may be more severe, with significant local inflammation, congestion, or possible compromise of the involved bowel segment. When this process becomes more severe, free peritoneal fluid may also develop. With progressive venous and lymphatic congestion, edema and inflammation of the bowel wall and mesentery can worsen, allowing fluid to leak into the surrounding peritoneal space. So, when free fluid is seen together with hyperechoic mesenteric fat or indistinct wall layering, we should be more concerned about significant bowel compromise. Let me give an example. This is a 5-month-old female golden retriever with anorexia, diarrhea, and vomiting. In the transverse ultrasound image on the left, we can see a small intestinal segment inside the outer bowel loop. We can also identify hyperechoic mesenteric fat within the lesion. This creates the typical target sign. In the longitudinal image, multiple parallel bowel wall layers with alternating hyperechoic and hypoechoic lines create the typical sandwich-like pattern. So, by confirming the lesion in both transverse and longitudinal planes, we can confidently diagnose intestinal intussusception. However, there is another important finding in this case. The mesentery surrounding the intussuscepted segment is markedly swollen and hyperechoic. The margin between the bowel wall and the adjacent mesenteric fat is also poorly defined. These findings indicate severe local mesenteric inflammation and edema around the affected bowel segment. So this is not just an uncomplicated intussusception. The prominent mesenteric reaction suggests that the lesion is clinically significant and may be associated with more severe bowel compromise. After evaluating the sonographic pattern and the severity of the lesion, the next question is, why did this intussusception occur? As mentioned earlier, canine intestinal intussusception is commonly reported in young dogs. In one retrospective study of 153 dogs, the median age was only 10 months. In these young patients, intussusception is often associated with acute enteritis or abnormal intestinal motility. Intussusception can occur in older dogs, but it is uncommon. So, when it develops suddenly in an older dog or cat, we should think more carefully about an underlying structural cause. Sometimes there is a focal lesion or abnormal structure that is pulled forward during intestinal peristalsis. This focal abnormality can become the starting point for one bowel segment to telescope into another. This is called a lead point. Possible lead points include an intestinal mass, focal mural thickening, foreign body, parasites, or postoperative changes. Here is an example of intussusception associated with a foreign body. In this ultrasound image, we can identify the intussuscepted bowel segment with a bowel-within-bowel appearance. Within the lumen of the inner bowel segment, there is a strongly echogenic structure with distal acoustic shadowing. This is the foreign body. So in this case, the foreign body is the suspected lead point for the intussusception. In general, canine intestinal intussusception may require surgical treatment. Depending on reducibility and bowel viability, treatment may involve manual reduction or bowel resection and anastomosis. But when a foreign body is present within the lumen of the intussusceptum, treatment must address both the intussusception and the foreign body. The foreign body must be removed, and the involved bowel segment should be carefully evaluated for viability, perforation, and peritonitis. So, identifying the foreign body is important because it may affect the surgical plan and clinical urgency. Here is another example of lead point-associated intussusception. This was an 8-year-old male Labrador retriever. The dog presented with acute vomiting, anorexia, and lethargy. On ultrasound, intestinal intussusception was identified. Because this was an older dog with sudden intussusception, we were concerned about an underlying structural cause. On ultrasound, the intussusception itself was clearly visible, but an underlying lesion was not identified. So CT was performed to evaluate the involved bowel segment more carefully and to search for a possible lead point. This is pre-contrast computed tomography of ileocecocolic junction. The image shows the continuous ileocolic passage. Here, within the proximal colon, the cecum is located inside the proximal colon. So, the proximal colon is the intussuscipiens, and the cecum represents the intussusceptum. Based on this image, we diagnosed ileocecal intussusception, with the cecum invaginated into the proximal colon. This is pre-contrast computed tomography of ileocecocolic junction. The image shows the continuous ileocolic passage. Here, within the proximal colon, the cecum is located inside the proximal colon. So, the proximal colon is the intussuscipiens, and the cecum represents the intussusceptum. Based on this image, we diagnosed ileocecal intussusception, with the cecum invaginated into the proximal colon. When we carefully evaluated the intussuscepted cecum, a small mural lesion was identified. On the post-contrast image, it showed strong homogeneous contrast enhancement. Based on its location within the intussuscepted cecum, this small cecal wall mass was suspected to be the lead point for the ileocecal intussusception. In the gross specimen, we can see the corresponding mass within the cecal wall. Histopathology confirmed the mass as a neuroendocrine tumor. So, when intussusception develops suddenly in an older animal, we should carefully search for an underlying cause. A detailed ultrasound evaluation is the first step, and if the underlying lesion is not clearly identified, computed tomography can be helpful for evaluating the involved bowel segment more precisely. To summarize, intussusception should be evaluated systematically on ultrasound. First, we should confirm the bowel-within-bowel configuration in two planes. In the transverse plane, it appears as a target sign. In the longitudinal plane, it appears as a sandwich-like layered pattern. But diagnosis should not stop at recognizing the pattern. We should also evaluate the bowel wall layering, the overall diameter of the intussuscepted segment, and whether the lesion is causing intestinal obstruction. Findings such as hyperechoic mesenteric fat, free peritoneal fluid, indistinct wall layering, and proximal bowel dilation may suggest a more clinically significant or severe lesion. Finally, we should always consider the underlying cause. This is especially important in older dogs and cats, or when the clinical context is unusual. So, when we report intussusception, our goal is not only to say, intussusception is present. We should also describe its severity, possible complications, and any suspected lead point or underlying lesion. Thank you for watching. If this lecture was helpful, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And please leave a comment. What GI ultrasound topic would you like to see next?